It was a chilly Friday evening in New York City, the streets glowing with neon lights and the sound of taxis rushing past as people hurried to escape the biting cold. Daniel Hartman, a billionaire with a taste for living anonymously at times, adjusted his plain jacket and baseball cap before slipping quietly into a modest, family-owned steakhouse tucked between two tall office buildings. No one recognized him, which was exactly what he wanted. He enjoyed blending in, watching how ordinary people lived, ate, and worked without the shadow of his wealth defining every interaction. The small restaurant buzzed with warmth and chatter, families sharing meals, couples leaning close over plates, and the smell of sizzling steak filling the air. A waitress named Emily, no more than her mid-20s, moved quickly between tables, balancing trays with practiced grace, though her eyes carried a weight of exhaustion. Her smile, though faint, was genuine each time she greeted a customer, and Daniel immediately noticed the weariness in her movements. She approached his table, notebook in hand, asking in a polite voice what he would like to order. He kept it simple, just a steak and black coffee. Emily scribbled it down, but Daniel noticed how her fingers trembled slightly, how she tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, as though to hide the worry etched on her face. She had the look of someone pushing through fatigue with sheer determination, and Daniel found himself oddly captivated. He was used to waitstaff treating him with forced cheer when they knew who he was, but Emily was treating him like any other customer, kind but distant, efficient but tired. He felt there was a story hiding behind her professional mask. When Emily returned with the plate, her movements were careful, almost too careful. She set down the food and coffee, and as she placed the napkin by his hand, Daniel noticed something unusual. Beneath the napkin, folded neatly but discreetly, was a small piece of paper. Emily's eyes met his for a brief moment, wide and filled with something unspoken, fear, maybe hope. And then she turned away quickly, heading to another table as if nothing had happened. Daniel felt the weight of the moment settle in his chest. For a few seconds, he hesitated. Why would a stranger slip him a note? Was it a mistake, or was she desperate enough to reach out to a man she didn't even know? Curiosity got the better of him, and he carefully unfolded the note under the table so no one would see. The handwriting was shaky, hurried, as though written in a rush, and his breath caught when he read the words. "Please, help me. My little brother is sick and I don't have enough to buy his medicine. I don't know who else to turn to." Daniel froze, the words echoing in his mind, more powerful than anything he had expected to find on an ordinary evening. He looked up from the note, his gaze finding Emily again as she poured coffee for another customer, her smile steady, though her eyes betrayed a storm of emotions. She had taken a risk, trusting a stranger in the corner of the restaurant, and that trust hit him harder than he could have imagined. The billionaire had walked in looking for dinner and anonymity, but instead he had just stepped into a story that would change everything. Daniel sat back in his chair, the note clutched tightly in his hand, his mind spinning with possibilities. He'd been approached countless times in his life for money, favors, or opportunities once people recognized who he was, but this was different. Emily had no idea he was a billionaire. She had simply taken a chance, slipping her desperate plea into the hands of a man she assumed might have a good heart. That simple trust touched him more than grand gestures ever had, and for the first time in a long while, he felt something stir within him. His eyes followed Emily as she continued working the crowded restaurant floor, moving with brisk efficiency, even though he could see the fatigue weighing her down. She smiled at every customer, asked if they needed anything, and never once showed the pain she had shared in that short note. Daniel wondered how long she had been carrying that burden, how many times she had hidden her fears behind the practiced grace of a waitress. He couldn't shake the thought of her little brother, sick and in need of medicine, while she worked long shifts to keep everything afloat. Daniel knew he had to act carefully. He couldn't just pull out his wallet and overwhelm her. That would frighten her, maybe even insult her pride. She had reached out quietly, humbly, not begging in the open but leaving him a choice. He respected that. He decided he would test her sincerity, not out of suspicion, but because he needed to understand the depth of her struggle. He waved her over with a gentle smile, and when she approached, he asked in a calm voice how long she had been working there. She looked slightly startled, but answered politely, saying it had been nearly 3 years. He nodded, pretending to sip his coffee, before casually asking if she lived nearby. Emily hesitated, her eyes narrowing slightly, but she didn't lie. She admitted she lived a few blocks away with her younger brother. She added quickly that she didn't like leaving him alone too long, but the bills didn't pay themselves. Her voice cracked slightly as she said it, and Daniel felt a pang of sympathy stab through his chest. She wasn't exaggerating. Her eyes told him the truth. She was a young woman trying desperately to hold her world together. After she walked away again, Daniel folded the note back up and slipped it into his pocket. He ate his steak slowly, his mind racing with possibilities. Part of him wanted to reveal who he was immediately, to tell her that her problems could be solved in a heartbeat, but he knew that wasn't the right way. He wanted to see her strength, her resilience, and perhaps give her a helping hand in a way that didn't feel like charity. She deserved dignity, not pity. He decided he would return tomorrow, and the next day if needed, to find the right moment, to offer real help. When he finished his meal, Emily brought him the check, her smile gentle but weary. Daniel paid in cash, slipping an unusually generous tip under the receipt. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw it, but she only whispered, "Thank you, sir," her voice trembling as though she wasn't used to such kindness. Daniel gave her a warm smile, his gaze holding hers for a brief moment before he stood and left. Outside in the cold, he breathed deeply, the city air biting his lungs. But all he could think of was the note and the courage it had taken for her to write. "'Tis us." That night, Daniel lay awake in his penthouse, overlooking the city skyline, the note on his nightstand. He could have dismissed it, handed it to someone on his staff to handle, but something inside him resisted. This wasn't a problem to be solved with a simple transfer of money. It was about the girl who had written it, the strength behind her, vulnerability, and the way her eyes revealed both fear and determination. Daniel realized he wanted to know more about her, not just to help her, but to understand her life, her struggles, and the quiet resilience that had captivated him. Next morning, Daniel returned to the steakhouse. He wore the same plain clothes, keeping his identity hidden. Emily was there again, looking just as tired, but still offering warm smiles to every customer. When she approached his table, she seemed almost surprised to see him again. He ordered the same thing, steak and coffee, and this time when she brought it, he looked at her more seriously. "You work very hard," he said softly. "Most people wouldn't notice, but I can see it." Her eyes widened slightly, as though she wasn't sure how to respond. She whispered, "Thank you," before retreating quickly. Daniel knew he had to be patient, but his resolve was firm now. He wouldn't walk away from this girl or her sick brother. He didn't know exactly how yet, but he would find a way to change their lives. The billionaire who had come to the restaurant seeking anonymity now found himself entangled in something much greater, a story of struggle, quiet courage, and a note that had stopped him cold. And for the first time in years, Daniel felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be.